All right, welcome everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever and whenever you're listening to this. Welcome to the Bitaxe Townhall. Today we're actually writing the number 19 of this podcast or this town hall. So I'm really pleased that we are that far into the numbers and that so many people of you are actually tuning in recently and frequently to the town hall, the place for you to come in and join, have a chat, ask questions, all about Bitaxe, all about the community, all about you. So I'm really happy to be here today, and we do have Scott here with us on the stage. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Waclo. Happy to be here. Thanks for setting this up.
As always, it's my pleasure to do so. How are you doing? Is your Gamma running?
My Gamma is running. I've got some new firmware loaded on it, so the display is a little wonky, but let's see what it's doing right now.
Have you checked out the Simplify screen branch that I created?
The what?
Have you checked out the Simplify branch that I created?
I haven't yet. I want to. That is definitely a goal of mine. I think simplifying the display of the Bitaxe, working on making that a little bit more useful, less cluttered, I think would be.
I believe I just did a couple of changes in system and in main.c and just did exactly what you requested in your issue on GitHub. It's really simplified.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm working on this sort of task cleanup thing, and one of the things that I needed to do there was rearrange the system task, and so that has a lot of the display sort of timing and logic in it. So I totally messed that all up. So we're going to have a fun challenge.
Oh, that's interesting.
Merging your changes with my changes. But
have you adjusted the driver to the ESP-IDF driver yet?
I haven't switched to that. You're talking about the display driver?
Mm-hmm.
What's that called? LVDL?
Yeah, something like that.
No, I would like to do that. I think that would be nice to do.
I'm still not sure if you should go that route. I mean, the LCD, the OLED driver is working, but sure, maybe we can use this already implemented logic that they do have, but I don't know.
One of the things that I did, and I think has helped so far, is I took all of the I2C calls, right? So that's the functions for the display, the functions for the voltage regulator, both of them, the new one and the old one, and the fan controller, and I wrapped all of those in mutexes so that any concurrent tasks need to wait until whoever's using the I2C port can finish up, and I think that is going to make things a lot more sane. It's going to make it so we don't have crashes or get erroneous readings like we were having before when we didn't have those just random delays in there. So,
so you already finished on putting everything into the mutex?
I did, yeah. That's
good because I do have this ramp up all test non-working branch on my fork. Because I was working on these, implementing the ramp-up sequence for all chips from the 97 all the way up to the 70 and enabling it to have this live change of frequency on core voltage. And I figured out that I straight up ran into the I2C issue of timing. So maybe I need to merge your mutex changes over there and see if it works now.
Yeah, you should. I think it should work better. It should. That's the goal, at least. Anyways, it's kind of an effort to start a much needed cleanup of all the FreeRTOS tasks in ESP Miner. They're kind of a little bit haphazard before, and I think as the project starts to grow and get more complicated, we're starting to run into some weird concurrency issues going on there. So want to get a hold of this sooner rather than later. And I don't think we have to do everything right off the bat. But
no, that's correct. But by the way, while we're speaking about these changes, I think it might be nice to actually talk with the audience about upcoming changes with 2.1.11? Because we internally and in some of these chats already spoke about it, that 2.1.11 will be the last version that the Bitaxe Max will receive.
Yes, that's right. We were kind of talking about that, and we have several major Bitaxe variants now. The Max, the Ultra, the Super, and the Gamma. And for a while there, actually, Max was like broken, and like no one even noticed apparently. So we recently got Max supported again on modern firmware versions of ESP Miner, and I think it's working pretty well. There's I think a couple bug fixes that need to go into that, but that'll get Max, Bitaxe Max, up to working good on modern firmware, and a lot of good bug fixes in there. And then the thought is that we will basically stop releasing new firmware updates for the Max. So that'd be past 2.1.11, which will probably be 2.2. Will just not work on the Max is the idea. And this is kind of to keep sanity with all the different hardware versions that are out there. I think, if any bugs are revealed in the Bitaxe Max, we can still fix them and do like a 2.1.12 or whatever. But the idea is that to get it to a good working state and kind of like just keep it there, so we don't have to test new versions on so many different hardware variants, which is
also
a bit of a chore.
Also this move away from the Max is not only that we don't want to support it, but it is, as you said, it's in a working state. It's good working, but comparing the Max over to the Ultra or the Super or the upcoming Gamma, the Max has probably the lowest number of sold or used devices overall, and therefore just supporting this, I think there is no need, especially with it is in a working state. It works flawless with 2.1.10. So just addressing these couple bug fixes that you spoke about, and then should be good. Also, moving along with version 2.2, we will move over the repository from Scott to the organization repository called Bitaxe.org. In the Bitaxe.org GitHub repo, or in this overview of this organization, you already will find a couple of different things, such as the ESP-Miner-Multichip, which is a firmware that I'm working on specifically for the hex, as well as in there, and this was apparently not really spoken about, there's a new repository called Super Hex. So there's a version for the Bitaxe Hex with the super chips, with the BM1368, which was basically done by Tiny Chip Hub. I just removed all their branding and then I put it into the Super Hex repository. So just for the people to know that we are actually moving away from having everything somewhere to now allocate everything on the Bitaxe.org organization on GitHub.
Yeah, I think that I've been meaning to do that for a long time, but I'm glad that we can move basically all the Bitaxe repos over to the Bitaxe.org. Just being GitHub itself, you get more sort of management options and user permissions and things for bigger groups if you have it set up as an organization, as opposed to what we have now, which is just my personal GitHub. So being as we have a lot of excellent contributors to the Bitaxe project and ESP Miner now, I think it makes more sense to have an organization account. So we will be, like you said, we'll be migrating all of the repos over there. We kind of have a couple, there's a lot of links out there in the world to the existing repos on my user account for GitHub. So there'll be redirects going there, and actually all of AxeOS right now for firmware updates, it points back to like a hard-coded link at my, at that GitHub/Scott/Bitaxe or ESP Miner link. So we're going to release a new firmware that points it at the new destination, and it'll be a little bit of a process, a little bit of a migration to get everything over, but I think
it will happen slowly, but it will happen definitely.
Yeah, that makes more sense. I tried to get an organization at GitHub called Bitaxe, and it's taken, and it has been taken for a long time, way longer than the Bitaxe project has existed. And
It's
but
funny.
it's like the person has no, whoever owns it has no public repos and no commits. Like their commit history for years has been nothing. So I, emailed GitHub. I was like, hey, like, is this account inactive? Like, could I take it? And they're like, nope. So we've got Bitaxe.org.
I mean, maybe at some point we could always decide to just spin up our own GitLab server under the bitaxe.org domain. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, it is a little bit weird being centralized on GitHub, which is a Microsoft product.
And it's proprietary.
Yeah, it's proprietary. I mean, Microsoft has really kind of changed their image and is going after a lot of open source stuff and a lot of development and things, and has a lot of useful tools for that. But, easy come, easy go. So the world could change pretty quickly in one way or another regarding the tools that they have available. So, and then also, if Bitcoin falls out of favor in the US, where I think Microsoft, is a company, and they have to start deleting that stuff from GitHub, right? That would obviously be super uncool. So in the future, I would like to figure out how to decentralize that, how to get it out there. Maybe it's the situation where we have it mirrored on our own on our own server, a GitLab instance or something like that. Certainly having the code available and mirrored on a service that is not GitHub, I think would be pretty useful.
Oh yeah, definitely doable. I mean, technically there are already a couple of these things. There is a global copy of every single commit that was ever done to GitHub, but those are some open source projects that are not that well known, so probably not that many people are actually using that.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't heard about that, but yeah, that'd be cool to check out. Is this just someone who's just
It's
cloning
basically a
every
copy
repo?
of whatever was ever committed to GitHub.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty rad. There's also, we have all the issues. We have all the pull request stuff that's on GitHub. I don't know, if you just fork or clone a repo, I don't think you get all that stuff.
I'm not really sure about that, but the way how this commit copying works is basically it just looks for commits to the repository. It doesn't actually look for commits that are an issue or a pull request, I believe. I mean, a pull request indeed is a commit, but an issue is not, so therefore issues would be lost, I believe. But I do know it exists. I just can't remember the name of it. I stumbled upon it last week, I believe, and I thought it might be really cool. But another funny thing about GitHub is not only that it is proprietary software, but also technically a private repository is not even private on GitHub. If somebody would know your commit hash, and it only takes the first 6 digits of your hash that you use to commit to GitHub, and even though you committed to a private repository, you could retrieve this data and read what the person has committed, even though it's a private repository. But that's the way how GitHub works.
Sneaky.
Yeah, but I mean, how high are the odds that somebody is actually knowing your exact commit hash? It's very low.
Yeah, right. And I think, that's only, I guess, an issue if someone has access to the repo and then they get it removed or revoked.
Yeah.
And maybe they could start to get in there. Weird Robot says, it's easy to switch to GitLab with all the issues and all that. The hard part becomes who's going to manage the instance, right? Someone has to manage the server. Yeah.
I mean, we already do have plenty of experience. I mean, Ben could sing a song about public pool.
We should get an update from Ben on public pool today.
Pardon?
I said we should get an update from Ben on public pool today. I know he's working hard on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he can come up on stage. That would be cool. But I was speaking. I would love to speak about public pool later on.
Derek says GitLab's open core is published under an MIT open source license. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
I spin up a GitLab on my own server here at home using Docker. It's super simple. It's just like 5 minutes and you have your own GitLab instance.
all right, weird robot. We might have to take you up on that. We kind of need someone to like lead this charge, and I guess we come up with what the options are, right? OSMU has a lot of, well, has a reasonable amount of donations and stuff to go and support this kind of thing. So maybe we could spin up that kind of server if we have some people that are sort of committed to setting that up and managing it. That'd be pretty cool.
He says, I'm going to take a Gamma from my trouble. I mean, that's a good deal if you host it forever.
Yeah, one Gamma hosted forever, deal. We only have a couple Gammas right now, but soon they'll be free flowing.
Funny thing, let's speak a little bit more about the Gamma. So just to give the people that are listening to this some food for thought. So Decentral has done this pre-sale of the Gamma, and currently they're actually selling the Gamma. So they published, I believe yesterday or 2 days ago, a note on Axe that they will start delivering their Gammas in the next week or in 2 weeks. I'm not sure about the exact dating, but today Tiny Chip Hub also reached out to me and said, yeah, hey, listen, next week we are gonna start with selling the Gammas. So these manufacturers are already up on that. I'm not really sure if it is a good move for them to be that quick, because the current series that we do have is at 600. And usually before anything was sold, at least we had the version 601 to clear out some issues. But I'm not sure. Scott, are there any issues with the current 600 version?
Well, I have one on my desk that's working pretty well. I think I made some progress on it last night. The firmware is very close. I would say the firmware for 600 is not finished yet. There's some weird issue that happens, like when you're starting up, a problem with the voltage regulator on there. I think we'll be able to fix that. I know.
Let me dive into this issue, because I was not really sure about it as well. Like, I would need an oscilloscope to actually figure it out, but I'm not sure if the TPS 546 is actually capable of delivering a good constant V out on 1 volt. And for the people that are now wondering what we're talking about, basically we do have this buck converter that's taking the 5 volts input and stepping it down to the appropriate voltage for the AC chip and all other sorts of components on this PCB. And I do also have a Gamma, which I received from Tiny Chip Hub to test on. And apparently, I don't know why, but my Gamma doesn't start actually hashing until I hit 1.2 volts on the AC chip. It starts hashing if I do sit at 1 volt, but I cannot reach anything above 500 to 600 gigahash, which is a bummer.
Definitely 1.0 volts, mine wouldn't hash at. I think that the chip needs, 1.06. I have played around with that, and 1.06, 1.07 is right where it's going to start to hash. So I think that we don't need a chip that can go to 1.0 volts.
Nebula Miner wrote, he's a legend, by the way, everybody needs to know that. He wrote that the TPS 546 is capable of doing 300 millivolts at 30 amps very stable. That's interesting. Okay, so then it's not a TPS issue from what it's capable of, but maybe an issue on how we initialize it.
It could be how we initialize it. It could be, these voltage regulators are very configurable with all the other circuitry that goes around it. So maybe there's an issue with some of the values we have selected there. I mean, that comes straight out of WebBench. TX
I mean, what is really good is, if you do have time for that, just check out the GitHub repository from Tiny Chip Hub. It's called Tiny Chip Hub. They do have this ESP-miner-TCH. That's how they call their fork of ESP miner. But they have implemented a couple more registries for the TPS 546 to actually be able to read out all these fault status points of the TPS 546. And that's the reason why I actually got into it and was actually capable of seeing that the TPS was telling me, hey, something is off with the input voltage and something is off with the output voltage. And I just raised my bench lab PSU that I do have here, my laboratory PSU, to 5.7 volts, and then this issue was gone. But I'm not sure. I don't have a 5 volt 6 or 7 amp power supply, so I can test on something like that. I only have my laboratory PSU, so maybe it could also be that. I don't know.
Yeah, the Gamma, the BM1370, is certainly capable of drawing quite a bit more power than the 1368. Has quite a bit higher hash rate. So you can drive it up. And I was able to, when I increased the frequency and essentially overclocked it from the default, I was able to get to a point in which the stock, the voltage regulate, the PSUs that Ben has, which are very nice units, but that come with the Supra, they're 5 volts, 5 amps. And I was able to get up to where ESP Miner was saying I was pulling 20 watts. Mm-hmm. And that's starting to get up there. That's well above, that's at the 80% of 25 watts that the PSU is rated for. And I actually saw the output voltage start to drop when I did that. So Ben and I have been talking about this a bit. I got on Amazon and ordered a handful of different 5 volt 6 amp power supplies. I also got a 5 volt 10 amp power supply. The 5 volt 6 amp power supplies I got from Amazon are garbage. They work worse than the 5 volt 5 amp ones that Ben
That's
has.
Interesting.
So I
do have a 40 amp power supply here next to me.
I got a 5 volt 10 amp power supply, and it's also some rando Amazon garbage brand.
Yeah,
but it does seem to do a little bit better with the Gamma, and that's what I'm currently running my Gamma with, is a 5 volt 10 amp power supply. But I think we can, as long as we can find a power supply that can do close to what it's rated at and not have too garbage of a barrel connector on it, then I think we're going to be all right there.
I mean, currently what I can say for the Gamma is with settings at, I believe frequency-wise, I'm staying at 575 megahertz and 1.2 volts, and I'm even out on 24 watts, pulling from the laboratory PSU. So 7 to 8 amps on a PSU wouldn't be that bad, I'd say. Maybe 6 is enough, I'm not sure. I mean, currently I'm just pulling 4 to 4.5 amps.
Yeah, it's just, these power supplies, there's a number printed on it that basically has no correlation to what it can actually do.
Yeah.
It has to be experimentally determined. It's a shit show. There's people who say like, oh, it's, you need to be within 80% of the sort of nameplate rated power, but I mean, I've had a handful of power supplies that definitely can't even do 80%.
Yeah, so. It's sort of this golden rule that everybody's speaking about, but some of these power supplies are just Chinese explosive thingies.
One of the ones I got from Amazon, the 5 volt 6 amp power supplies I got, is so light. You're like, is there anything even in there? It's incredible how light it is, and it's not surprising that it is garbage. It cannot.
Yeah.
Deliver 5 volts at even close to its rated current. Anyways, the Gamma uses more power. It uses more current, and so new power supplies are going to be necessary. We're going to have some recommendations available for resellers of ones that they can use. Obviously, all sellers that are going to be selling the Gamma should either buy the recommended power supply, or if they're going to do their own, they need to do extensive testing with it before selling that.
I hope they do. We had a couple of manufacturers that are just shipping out some weird knockoff thingies that weren't really supposed to work on what they used them for. So even though you do buy from any of these manufacturers from the legit list, it is just a saying or just a list from us to tell you, all right, these are some people that we know and this company is legit. It's not, we don't actually have a list or proof that the product that they do sell is good or not.
Yeah, I kind of try and mention this at the top of the legit list, that it is only a listing of sellers that follow the open source license. Like I just don't
Correct.
have any way to verify their customer service, their quality of product provided. Um, I have mixed emotions about the legit list. I think that might go away in the future. It was pretty essential in getting started up with the Bitaxe because there were so few sellers, and I wanted to make sure people, especially in countries outside the United States, were aware of manufacturers there. But people are emailing me all the time now to get on there, and it's become quite a lot of work to manage that. And I also, like, it's hard to have this list and be like, this list is only people who follow the open source license. Like, it could be a scam, right? All I can do is look at their website and be like, do they follow the rules? But there's been a couple questions about nerdminer.store that people have mentioned me. They're having some trouble with customer service there. It's like, what am I going to do? Like, I could email them and be like, are you guys real? They have been real in the past, but it's just, things change, and that's a lot of work to keep up. So that list might be going away in the future. We'll see.
Who knows? Before we dive deeper into that, I need to quickly say to everybody, if you do have a question or anything else, town halls are usually for you in the audience. If you do have any questions about Bitaxe or anything else, if you just want to chat with us, just raise your hand and I'll bring you up on the stage. Town halls are for you, from miners for miners. All right, shall we move ahead? And Ben, do you want to speak a little bit about public Puall, what has happened and what's going on with it?
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right, good. So yeah, recently, as people may have noticed, public Puall has kind of been up and down. We were running some issues with the VPN service. It was a fairly low cost, but effective VPN service for quite a while. But then, started having issues with it. And I don't have control over their servers or anything, so I couldn't really see into what was going on. It was kind of just, here's a service, use it if it works, and it wasn't working. So I switched to a dedicated hosting provider, and now the VPN is running under a machine that I control. Took me a while to get things figured out, because we have so many nerd miners now that we have almost exhausted all the TCP sockets for like a single address. Which is kind of funny.
That's insane.
Oh my gosh. How many nerd miners are there trying to connect right now?
Around 50,000. And the configuration, the default configuration, was only about half the space for a TCP socket. So there was only could take in about 20,000 nerd miners, and things were freaking out, and I couldn't figure out why. So, but I finally figured it out and opened it up to almost the 64,000. But we're gonna start running into that limit here again with another 10,000 nerd miners. So
it's gonna be interesting. So we actually need to figure out a appropriate load balancing service, I believe.
Well, there's some workarounds. I just have to make some small adjustments to public Puall, and then essentially run more instances on different ports. It's already a very scalable application in terms of you can scale it up really large in one machine, but it doesn't necessarily play nice like across machines. So just have to make some adjustments there, and as I kind of alluded to there. I have some more servers kind of waiting in the background. So once I do that, I can deploy more CPU power and have it bring it on. So
Weird Robot is asking in the chat, Ben, if you can open source instructions on spinning one up, especially in optimizations you've made. Some of us may be able to spin some up for others to use. I mean, public pool is open source. Everything is open source, and in the repository is also on how to spin up things. It's quite trivial, I'd say.
Yeah, that's right. The default SQLite version is good for at least a few thousand clients. If you need kind of more pool power than a few thousand, then you can switch to the Postgres version, and that's somewhat involved. And if you're going to do that, you probably need to kind of already know how to do a lot of this stuff, like how to optimize Postgres and deploy load balancers and stuff. So
yeah, it can get quite tricky, I'd say, right?
Yeah, so I'd say unless you're really gunning for like a lot, and if you're just going to set up for your friends and family, or maybe just a small group, then stick with the Postgres, or stick with the SQLite version. It's very capable.
I mean, that would be kind of cool, is to get sort of more regional and, divided up, especially for the nerd miners. I know that Decentral has a pool instance. I guess maybe that's not public pool anymore, but maybe some of the sellers, especially some of the nerd miner sellers, could spin up their own pools, and we could get this sort of divided up a little bit, so it isn't just like 50,000 machines all hitting your one server at once.
I mean, Decentral's Solar Pool is still public pool, if I'm not mistaken.
It's kind of a technology demonstrator, so I don't mind. I mean, in reality, the 50,000 nerd miners really aren't doing much. They're only a couple gigahash, which is less than single Bitaxe. But it proves that the pool can do it, and has definitely helped with trying to scale up. If at some point we reach those same numbers with Bitaxes, then we'll know we'll be ready for it. So they've been really helpful in the load testing areas, which is why I've tolerated it.
Yes, 50,000 Bitaxe is soon, right?
Hopefully. I don't know. I think a very small percentage are actually on public pool. Because the uptime isn't 100%, because it is just like a technology demonstrator and something I host myself, not for profit. So, you shouldn't be expecting 100% uptime from me.
Well, this most recent public pool outage, and then the one we had, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so, has definitely illuminated a lot of problems that we have with ESP Miner and reconnecting to servers and notifying people that it's not working. So there's actually still a bunch of bugs there. So it's been good to sort of flesh those out with these real world situations.
For sure. Speaking of which, if you have a Bitaxe and you were connected to public pool, it might be a good idea to power cycle it. The DNS IP, like the DNS resolution, has changed, and that seems to be sticky on the Bitaxe. So we'll restart and see if it comes back.
While we're talking about this, I do have an idea of how we can actually maybe implement something to notify people if they're using a Bitaxe. Because, I mean, Scott, you said it, I mean, like yesterday in the chat between us, like, you look at your Bitaxe, it is still hashing. You take a look on the web UI, and it's still hashing and showing you hash rate. It's bouncing up and down. But actually, to figure out that it is not doing any actual work because it doesn't connect to public pool, you would need to take a look on the shares or in the logs. And most people won't actually do that because they see it's hashing and they think all is fine. So what about a proposal, some sort of an idea that we do implement some sort of a static notification server, and in case something is really needed, we can push a notification to the Bitaxe XOS user interface that as soon as somebody opens it and there's a notification available from our server, it's a small pop-up which says something like, please power cycle, your Bitaxe or something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I want to have a status function on the Bitaxe that's sort of monitoring the pool, and it has a timer so that we can determine, it's been too long since we've actually had some data from the pool, and so we can keep track of status of both mining to the pool and mining and the ASIC on the Bitaxe. And so then we would have that information on the Bitaxe if it's still connected. And I think the first thing to do is provide that to AxeOS API, and then anyone else using the API could have access to that. But yeah, I could imagine in the future a configuration in AxeOS where you could put in a URL or something that the Bitaxe also sends its status to.
Yeah, that might be helpful. Who knows? We'll see. I mean, many things are brewing.
The processor on the Bitaxe, the ESP32, it's capable, especially for a microcontroller, but it's it's significantly less capable than like a PC, a desktop PC, or a phone. So, a lot less RAM, a lot less storage, and it's also a lot more of a hassle to deal with network connections, especially multiple network connections. So yeah, I think it's doable. I definitely want to get, like I said, that status task going on the Bitaxe so that it makes it very clear that something's not working, both on the display and on AxeOS.
Yeah, I think that might be a really, really great helping tool for everybody.
Yeah, right now we don't look for responses from the Stratum server, so we'll just send shares, and the hash rate will be changing, and the number of shares will be increasing, but we don't look to see if the server actually responded that it was accepted. So you can be like, oh yeah, everything's going great on my Bitaxe, it's just hashing away, and the Bitaxe is capable of generating work for a long time, like valid work for the ASIC for a long time. So it could right now, if the pool goes down or the network goes down, it should restart. But there, kind of these sneaky, there's a couple sneaky ways in the pool can go down and just fail to respond, and we don't notice it. And there's basically no way to tell by looking at the Bitaxe.
I mean, the easiest way to actually know this is if you do pull up your logs, and if you never see anything in the logs that states mining.notify, then you don't have any socket connection with the pool. Because that's the thing, we could look for, if you would implement something like this, we could look for a Stratum accept message, but the issue with that is, what if somebody's actually connecting the Bitaxe to a high difficulty pool? If they do that, they will rarely see a submit message or an accept message. So looking for mining.notify is probably the better idea.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, Stratum is kind of goofy, and so there's no actual rule for how often you should get a mining notify. But I mean, if it's been 10 minutes and you haven't gotten one, then the pool is definitely not working right.
Yeah,
I would think you can look for any message that comes through across the TCP socket.
but then you would actually monitor the TCP socket, which just adds up complexity, I'd say.
Well, I mean, we currently receive all messages from the server, and we print them to the log, so we're aware that they're coming in, and so we can just have a counter that's just free running, and it just resets every time we get anything over the socket, and then if that timer exceeds a configurable value, then it says it's not connected to the pool. And E. Anderson says we could at least have the status of the TCP socket itself. The TCP socket, it's like a POSIX socket in ESP IDF, but it's a little bit, it's not very full featured. We don't actually get a timeout on the socket. So looking at the status of the socket I wish it was better. Maybe someone can take a look at it and see if there's a way to get that information out of it. When I looked, I wasn't able to figure it out, but maybe there's an elegant way to do that. So yeah, if you want to take a look at it, that would be awesome. I just switched to my internal pool, and there is a bug where for some reason DNS to internal IP does not work. Just return 000. Interesting. Are you using the actual IP address, or are you using one of those like .local MDNS addresses?
There's an issue with these MDNS thingies.
Yeah, they don't work.
They kinda, but it always depends on your network setup. I mean, for my example, I do have an OpenSense running MDNS, and it just works. If I do point it to my public pool.local, it works. But
yeah, I think there's a way that you can have that set up on your network, like an MDNS.
Yeah, it's a network issue, not an ESP miner issue.
But not everyone's going to have that.
Correct.
We're pointing at a local IP, set static IPs, and use them. Yeah, there's definitely some work that could be done here. If someone has experience with socket programming, we would love to have your input. And I guess this is a good segue too, because I would very much like to have some more people contributing to ESP Miner. It's getting to be quite the project. So if anyone wants to get involved in that, we'd be happy to have you. I can kind of help get you up to speed, but new contributors there would be much appreciated. It's a pretty exciting project, and we can talk about it as you get more involved, but there is funding available for people who want to do this. So I would just say that if anyone's out there and is itching to write some network C code or some embedded RTOS C code, there's some opportunities here. I've got a bunch of issues that I made on the GitHub repo. There's some kind of just easy ones in there that say like help wanted or good first issue, that are just kind of small things you could use to dig in. But yes, we'd love to have your help.
Alrighty, yeah. I mean, also, if this is also segue.
Wanklu has been helping out a ton, by the way. Not to slight his contribution at all. He has been driving a lot of the improvements we've seen lately. So I'm much appreciated for your help, buddy.
I love to do. It's all what I want to do. I wish I could do this full time, but whatever. I was about to say there's a segue also to our bug bounty. So, I mean, Anderson, I believe, was it, that figured out recently a bug. We're just waiting for confirmation of sending out the sets over to him. So this is a segue for everybody who's tuning in or listening currently or listening later on any of these podcast platforms. If you are willing to work on this, as Scott said, there's not only funding available from different sources, but also if you do find a bug and contribute a solution to this bug, you get the bug bounty. And we do have that, and we will pay this out, so it is definitely there. And I just need to mention this because I know working on something for free is not really appealing to everybody. Not everybody is like us, but yeah.
You didn't even know about it. Where are these bug bounties listed, by the way, for people?
We have them listed for when. So one thing how you could find out about the bug bounty is on opensourceminers.org. There is a extra entry for the bug bounty, or if you are a member of the Discord community. And by the way, this is also a good segue to our Discord community, which you can find on discord.gg/OSMU. We do have a channel called Bug Bounty. Just hop in there, take a look. We do have different bug bounties: mining bug bounty, web UI bug bounty, and a general bug bounty. So just check them out. They're available on opensourceminers.org and in the Discord. Just so you know, we won't forget you if you do help us. Because what we do here is not only for us, even though we present us as being here the developers, but this is for everybody. ESP Miner is a project for everybody. You can do whatever you want with it, and we've seen plenty of companies doing that, so that's totally fine.
We've had this thing lately where there's like some spam thing happening in the GitHub comments. I don't think there's actually anything we can do about it other than just trying to delete them.
Currently, that's correct, and that's the reason why we need to move over to Bitaxe.org, because then we do have moderation rights and we can eliminate them.
Okay. All right,
With being an organization on GitHub, you not only have better moderation about the people who can actually contribute, but you have a better moderation about everything what's going on in your repositories, which is just awesome and a rabbit hole on its own.
Great. All right. Well, that's a good reason to move over. So, until then, and I guess anywhere you go, be careful looking at GitHub issues. There's some people, they post some sketchy link and it says, run this, right? Like you need to have GCC. So it seems like kind of a technical comment, but the link is just some sketchy ass software that does who knows what on your computer. So stay alert.
Also, if you do have any issues with you,
it's 2024. Don't click on sketchy links.
You definitely don't run software from sketchy links. Like, oh my gosh.
I mean, even though I've seen a couple of forks of my Bitaxe web flasher, which I'm currently reworking to have a better visual appeal to everybody and being a little bit more easy, and also adding a couple new features to it. I'm working on that, but what I was about to say is there are plenty of forks, and I have no control over any of these forks, and I've seen a couple of people uploading their version of it, making it available, and if you do apply the firmware that is in their Bitaxe web flasher, then I can't say if this firmware is not in any way modified. It could be that it shows to you just some food for thoughts. I'm not saying they're doing this, but it could be technically that you put in your Bitcoin address in the XOS with this sketchy firmware that you downloaded somewhere on a sketchy link while we're being in 2024, and it shows you that you're mining to your Bitcoin address, but actually you're not. It's possible, definitely. I'm just saying that don't use any of these sketchy shit. Just use what's officially here from us. And with that, I know currently the Bitaxe web flasher is hosted on my GitHub repository, and it's called oneclue.github.io/Bitaxe web flasher, yada yada yada. It will move over to Bitaxe.org as well. So you do get the point. We will move everything slowly over to Bitaxe.org one at a time to have this official stamp. You just go in there, stamp it. That's official. Everything else is scam.
Yeah,
That said,
that'll be helpful.
good idea to compile your own stuff too. Like, don't just rely on us. Maybe WantClue goes rogue one day and decides he wants all your Bitcoin.
Yeah, maybe I want to rob you. Who knows? There are plenty of technical details about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We spend a lot of time thinking about, how do we keep this decentralized so that there isn't like a single point of failure for these things. So, like for example, the firmware update process is pretty manual at this point, but it is really important to try and limit, or to try and keep this decentralized. Like anyone can do whatever they want, but it puts a lot of the burden on the users because now they have to contend with potential, hacky, scammy stuff because there isn't just like one authoritative source. But that's where you also run into problems, is if there's just one authoritative source, then there's a single point of failure. And for a number of reasons that could go away and just like rug the whole project. So we're trying to have our cake and eat it too here with this.
Also with moving forward with all these changes, in the last town hall I spoke about it. We're doing some sketchy. We have done some sketchy shit with ESP Miner, to be fair, on the GitHub repository. We are all learning on this process. This is all a process, and we need to get better at everything. But now we kind of all agreed on this standpoint of, all right, if there's something needed to be changed, we actually make a pull request, and at least somebody who is trustable needs to review it and approve it. Otherwise, it's not allowed to go into the repository. I mean, could be at some point that even Scott is going rogue on us. So who knows? I mean, why would you trust anybody of us? We are just some random dudes on the internet telling you how great Bitcoin mining is. But in the end, it comes down to you to educate yourself and make it more decentralized in this manner as well. And I'm trying my best to also provide a complete new series about this, because I've done so many videos, but I do get it. I'm sometimes too techy, and I need to make it more easier or more approachable for the NPCs out there, I'd say. Sorry if you feel offended, but I'm a techie dude, so it is what it is. And I believe it is needed that more people understand on how to actually compile your own stuff. I mean, I wouldn't even download the Bitcoin Core from the Bitcoin Core website. I won't trust that. I compile it myself.
We could do, this would be a fun project for someone who's getting involved in it and setting it up for themselves. But like, I think PMax did some work on Dockerizing the whole tool chain for ESP Miner, the whole ESP IDF tool chain. Right now, that's a pain in the ass to set up.
Oh yeah, it is. There's a pull request for this open. I already approved it.
Okay, great. Yeah, if we could get it easier to set up, some documentation, so that it's easy enough to set up and compile it from source, that would be fantastic. I mean, embedded systems are traditionally a huge pain in the ass to set up tool chains for. But actually, Espressif and ESP IDF is one of the better ones, and it sounds like there's a chance that it could be made even easier. So I think that will go a long way if we make the steps for setting it up easier so people can verify and not just blindly trust the binaries that we put out. I think that will help quite a bit. Nebula did a Nix shell script for ESP Miner RS today. Nice. Looking forward to that.
That's also a great thing. Like, we spoke about this decentralization and moving things around and everything. I mean, currently ESP Miner is written in C, and Nebula Miner and a couple other people, K1 for example, they're working on a Rust version of ESP Miner. So you do get a point. We have this evolvement of multiple projects that are actually trying to achieve the same. And it might sound silly at the first point of hearing this, but actually what it provides you is to choose what you want to use. Some people prefer Rust, other people prefer Golang, other C or C++. The limit is, the sky's the limit. You can program ESP Miner with whatever programming language you would like. I mean, I bet you could also do this with MicroPython, but why would you? Some people love Rust.
You can do sort of Arduino ESP32 in MicroPython. I wouldn't advise it. We have to be a little bit performant here.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, one of the best things probably about Rust, and while I'm also looking forward for having this Rust implementation, is that you upfront eliminate some memory leakages if you do it correct. Then it's technically impossible to have any thought of memory leakages in there, but I mean, we're working on making harden the ESP Miner repository written in C. There are also a couple of people that are mentioning maybe we should move over a couple of these things to C++, but there is no limitation. Everything is correct. Just don't use MicroPython.
Yeah.
I mean, apart from that, I always need to encourage everybody who's in the audience. It's lovely to have you here, and it's lovely to see people in here coming over and over again. I do see a lot of familiar names in here. It's lovely to have you here, and I'm really thankful for you joining in here, listening to us weirdos talking to you. So if you do have any questions, or if you're new into this, please just leave a comment in this Town Hall chat. If you do click on the left side on Town Hall, you can open up this chat icon, and you can just ask any question. If you don't want to come up on stage, if you want to come up on stage, feel free to raise your hand and I'll make sure to bring you up on the stage.
Yeah, Bitmaker, I like C too.
I mean, the matter of fact, the nerd miner from Bitmaker is written in C++, sort of. Some of these parts are written in C++. Most of it is also in C, but the NerdMiner firmware is not written on the Espresso framework, but on the Platform IO framework, I believe.
I think it's Arduino, isn't it?
Yeah, and you use then this Platform IO stuff. Maybe I'm mixing things around here currently.
Nebula throwing it down. ESP Miner RS will continue to support the Macs. There we go. It's a battle royale here for. I mean, we could have multiple firmwares. We'll keep ESP Miner and C chugging along until ESP Miner RS is ready to go. Should we, one clue? Should we talk about any of the I don't know. There was a very cool announcement of the. All right, I'm going to get this name right. It was the. Oh shoot! It was the Q. No, it was the NerdOctoAxePlus.
Mm-hmm.
From
Puall 91. So
Puall
if
91.
you haven't
Yeah.
recently watched the announcement channel, I made an announcement, the NerdOctoAxePlus, and we didn't make the name, but Puall did, and he did some
the
great work on this.
NerdOctaxePlus, right?
Yeah,
'Cause it had
NerdOctoAxePlus, yeah.
These names are getting a little crazy, but it's permissionless. You can call your project whatever you want.
It's just awesome. So if you don't know what we're talking about, make sure to check out our Discord server, which is available at discord.gg/osmu, and scroll all the way down as soon as you do have the access to all these channels, which are just granted if you do click on I accept the rules in the rules channel. We do have members projects, which is just awesome. And we do have a couple of sections. In the NerdMiner section is the NerdQX+, and in there Puall shared with us his improved version of the NerdQX. So what is the NerdQX? You all know the NerdMiner, which is this handy dandy little screen created by BitMaker. Really, really much love to you, buddy. And it's just beautiful. And then there was this NerdX, which is a combination of the Bitaxe Ultra and the NerdMiner. Basically, it's a Bitaxe Ultra with a beautiful screen from the NerdMiner. Basically, that's it. That's the improvement, but it's more appealing. And Thomas, so PMAX, thought it might be a cool idea to actually change his QX, which relied on a second computer to control it, to modify it to use the screen as well, because the screen is controlled by an ESP32, and we know a ESP32 is basically capable of sending commands to multiple of these ASIC chips, so why not combine it? And the NerdQX was then born, basically the NerdQX+, because it's with the Supra chip, the BM1368. And Puall thought it might be an even cooler idea to scale this even more up and go for 8 chips. You do get the point. Q is 4, Oct is 8, and the name is program here. So it's a nice handy dandy little device. It looks like, it's funny, somebody mentioned it to me today. It looks a little bit like this shit miner from Brains. This 1 terahash thingy, but it does have way more capability, is way more efficient. It just looks beautiful and has an awesome screen. So
And it's
it
open
does.
source.
It's open source. That's the most important part, and it doesn't violate any of these GPL licenses out there. But we don't want to speak more about these people. I will have a conversation with, I believe, with the CEO very soon, which is funny on its own. But maybe I dive into that on the next town hall. The NerdOctoAxePlus is utilizing 8 of these ASIC chips, the BM1368, and is capable of delivering 5.2 to 5.5 terahash at 100 watts.
And I think it's also important that the NerdQX+, right, which is the predecessor to the NerdOctoAxePlus, has a couple manufacturers now. So I think Bitronix and Decentral are starting to manufacture this, so it could be available soon. Also, an impressive device with 4 BM1368s. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is cool, right? This is like exactly what I want to see, right? Is people can, people who want to do this stuff, want to learn how to do this stuff, who maybe already know how to do this stuff, can just take these designs and run with them and make some cool stuff and get it out there. And we can take back this mining thing for open source. So very excited to see that. I really want to order a NerdOctoAxePlus. I think that's a cool design. I think it's cool because on the hex, for example, we have 3 voltage domains, which is a more traditional way of powering the ASICs.
And the pain in the butt.
It's also a pain in the ass. Like, oh my God, what a pain. Because, you think like, it's like Christmas lights where they're all powered in series, right? So the power, the ground of one is the positive power input to the next one, and so on. They're all chained together like that. That works. The problem becomes when you're routing the data across those voltage domain boundaries. It's just a huge pain in the ass. So we struggled a lot with that on the hex.
Funny thing, I mean, my project
struggled a lot with it. We've all like futzed with it a bunch.
Yeah, I mean, my project, the Bitforge Nano, currently, which is just 2 of these BM1368, which I try to release by the end of next month. Our first revision of the prototype also used a couple of add-ons to do this voltage domain shifting. I don't know. We removed it for the second revision.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking with I don't see him here. Let's just say a designer of commercial industrial miners, and they come from a CPU, GPU background, and GPUs are kind of interesting in that they also want to have a very low voltage DC, high current power supply to power the GPU. The difference being that they're just one sort of monolithic chip, whereas with a lot of Bitcoin miners, you have a lot, like maybe even 100 of chips all together. And so he was telling me that they were initially looking at powering the chips in parallel, which is what I was saying was pretty cool that the NerdOctoAxePlus does, is powers all the chips in parallel. And so they were thinking, coming from GPU world where it is essentially powered in parallel, low voltage, high current. They had started to try and make a miner that way, and they're trying to make like tens or hundreds of terahash in a single miner, and it kind of broke down and didn't really work. But I think that we can do this with these sort of, I don't know where the limit is, like maybe it's 8 or 10 chips. We can do these parallel power configurations where we have low voltage and high current.
I think we can even go higher, like 16 or 32 chips should be no problem. There are buck converters that are capable of doing that, and even not, you can spread across multiple hash boards and achieve a chain this way.
I mean, you start to get really high currents. I think it was Bitmaker who called this out, right? Like, I mean, if you have 100 watts of ASICs on there and they're all powered in parallel at like 1.2 volts, that's over 80 amps.
Yeah, that's the OctAxe
kind of crazy.
Plus. It's 100 watts. All of them are parallel.
What's that?
I mean, the OctAxePlus is running this way.
Yeah, it starts to be, there's some problems when you have really high current at low voltage. You need to have very thick traces. So I'm just saying, I don't know exactly where it breaks down, but it does break down as you start to get more and more chips and have higher and higher current. But I think, where we are for home mining, I do think powering the chips in parallel makes it a lot easier. So this is a very long-winded way of saying I like what the OctAxe and the QAxe are doing. I think that the DC-DC drives almost 80 amps on the NerdOctoAxe. That is pretty wild. But this is a GPU thing. Like GPUs, they do that exact same thing. They have these same multi-phase voltage regulators. So, there's a whole world of components out there for that ecosystem, which we can take advantage of.
I mean, in the
and
end,
not
I do
have to
believe,
be-
as you said, we're still in the home mining ecosystem, and people are not looking forward to purchase a 2000 watt mining device. They are looking for something in between 15 watts to, I don't know, maybe 500 watts. That's okay-ish. Something to heat a little bit your room, but you don't want to go industrial. Not now.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go, if you can deal with industrial heat and power, um, you can save a lot of money by buying an ant miner, like, and maybe going
You
making a
can't do it
Loki rig
cheaper
out
than
of it,
them,
or
yeah.
getting a new control board for it. Um, you know, I think the value that we can bring to this mining world is definitely, in my opinion, on the smaller miner home mining side, because there's a lot of people working on this industrial side that they have a lot more money to throw at this.
All right, we're now talking over 1 hour already. It's awesome. Do we have any questions, anything else from the audience?
Oh, E. Anderson says this DNS bug is pretty crazy. I'm pretty sure that you cannot have a 0 in your IP on a pool today. It's like, okay, all right, that's a crazy bug. We should get this fixed up.
Yeah, we need to dive a little bit into that. I mean, I'm not really sure if the
I have a 0. How does that happen?
I
Oh
got
my
a
gosh!
PR
All right, it's
already.
probably somewhere in, like,
What?
we have to convert from a string to an integer to actually get the IP working. Maybe it's something in there. Anyways, I see that E. Anderson has posted an issue about this. So, right on, dude. Thank you for bringing that up and making an issue. This is how we knock down all these silly bugs and make this more reliable, easier to use.
I'll
so
test
that
that out later on.
So that we can.
I mean, I'm really wondering because I don't know, my pool DNS, I use plenty of zeros. I do have a 10.0.10. something IP address at home currently, and therefore I do have zeros in my IP address. It only applies to DNS records. Alright, gotcha. I'll test this out later on. It's
Cool.
amazing.
This is
We have
good.
some
I like
live
to see that.
PRs during a town hall. How amazing is that?
Right. This is gonna go into a debugging session here live for everyone to follow along.
Alright, that's amazing. Well, I think with that, we'll wait for the people to write what they do have to write in the town hall chat, and after that, we're gonna close this app. My own Emperor public pool is full of 02. Really strange. Yeah, maybe this is actually a fix. So I'll dive into this PR later on. Or
Shout out,
maybe
we got
tomorrow.
20 people here and some definite OGs, and I like to see lots of new folks as well. Man, so stoked to have you all here. This is really awesome. Yeah, we got Nebula, we got Bitmaker, Developer Algo. I think those were some of the first people that I ever worked with on this Bitaxe project. We got Avril, is obviously essential support to the Bitaxe project. Yeah, shout out to Derek, Borscht, Crypto Ice. You guys are amazing. E. Anderson, new guy, but definitely killing it. Weird Robot has decided to learn Rust and work on ESP Miner RS at the same time, right? You're just going all in.
I mean,
Oh, he knows
No,
Rust. All right, sorry,
he
I didn't
knows
mean to.
Rust. That's
I didn't
solid.
claim to. I apologize. Weird Robot is an old Rust pro who's diving into making drivers for ESP Miner RS. I don't know if you're even old. Maybe you're just a pro.
maybe he's 15 and just a pro.
Could be.
He feels old. You can be 15 and feeling old. That's fine. All right. I think then that's it for today's session. Let's see. A couple of people's days don't stop writing in the chat. All right, we need to create some content here so that we don't have an empty hole in the town hall. I don't know. Something that also caught my eye lately is, many of these people that are joining into this Discord here do have weird names or weird avatars, which is totally fine. Nobody is willing to share private information, and this is totally the way to go. But I'm not sure if I'm here calling this correct or not. I do see Christine in the audience here, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the first woman that I do see here in this Discord as well, and she provided some actually good knowledge to a couple of new people joining in here as well. So really shout out to you, and thanks for helping other people as well. I really love to see that. And as I said, I hope I don't offend anybody if we do have other women here in as well, which is hopefully the case, but who knows. I just wanted to mention that so we do have some context here to speak about. All right, so LTA Tech is saying, thanks for holding these regularly, guys. Helps me catch up on OSMU without having to go deep through Discord channels. Yeah, checking out Discord channels is sometimes a little bit messy, and I need to admit, sometimes I just click on the OSMU server and click all red. It is just too much.
You know what's crazy is they'll log in and it's like every channel is unread. I'm like, what the fuck has happened here? But I guess
that was a scam.
Came in, and then they got deleted. But I want to shout out to Stealth 2600, a new moderator who's helping keep this shit on the rails. Which, much appreciated. Thank you.
It's really good to have you, really. All right, with that, I think we'll wrap it up, or it's already wrapped up. So we're going to close the session. Thanks, guys, for joining in here and tuning into this. Thanks to everybody who's listening to this later on. If you still miss us and you want to chat with us, just join us on Discord. You can find us on discord.gg/OSMU. And if you want to donate to the Open Source Miners United community and keep everything that we're doing up and alive, feel free to do so. We also do have a Lightning account, which is called osmu@strike.me, if I'm not mistaken. Quickly checking. osmu@strike.me. Yeah, that's correct. So thanks everybody for tuning in here, and see you in 2 weeks.